If you're dealing with a narcissist, don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, don't personalize. Let me share something most people never grasp until it is already too late. Narcissists hold deep, intimate secrets they never want you to reveal because those hidden truths are the fundamental base of their control. The way they touch you, deliberately withdraw from you, or suddenly turn passion into severe punishment, it is all carefully planned. It is not affection. It is purely about dominance. And when you finally understand what is truly happening behind locked doors, you will realize that what once felt intensely thrilling was actually profound manipulation. Stay with me because once you clearly recognize these patterns, you will never be deceived by them again. If you have ever felt confused, deeply rejected, or strangely attached to someone who constantly made you question your own value, keep watching this. This might finally make everything clear and understandable. When discussing narcissists, physical intimacy is never just about closeness or genuine affection. It is entirely about control, validation, power, and confusion. It stands as one of their most powerful weapons, something they utilize to strongly attract you, mix up your emotions, and keep you completely attached to them. You might genuinely believe what is occurring in those private moments is love, but for a narcissist, it is all a meticulously calculated act. There are undeniable hidden facts about how they approach physical closeness that they absolutely do not want you to discover because once you truly understand it, their illusion of power will begin to fall apart. When you see these hidden games for what they truly are, you start to reclaim your self-assurance, your body, and your genuine sense of self. For a narcissist, intimacy is a performance, not a real connection. In the early stages, they use it to strongly impress you, to make you feel completely special, overwhelmingly desired, and profoundly wanted. They keenly study your reactions, perfectly mimic your specific preferences, and appear to know precisely what makes you feel recognized. You might think, I've never experienced a bond like this before, but that intensity is not real connection. It is manipulation expertly disguised as passion. It is a psychological lure intended to hook you quickly and make you instantly reliant on them emotionally. Once they know they have secured your emotional control, their consistent effort begins to vanish. Their attention shifts dramatically, their affection becomes inconsistent, and you are left wondering what possibly went wrong. The raw truth is, nothing changed except their need to perform. Once they have successfully secured emotional control, they no longer need to keep up the pretense. Narcissists also use intimacy as a weapon. They deliberately alternate between giving and withholding affection to control your behavior. When you are constantly pleasing them, validating their ego, and perfectly meeting all their needs, they reward you with attention and physical closeness. But if you dare to set boundaries, challenge their behavior, or stop complying, they immediately pull away. This deliberate act of withholding affection or sex is designed to make you anxious, deeply insecure, and desperate for their approval once more. They desperately want you to link your self-worth to their desire for you. Once you start doing that, they achieve absolute control. You will find yourself apologizing for things you never did, trying much harder to please them, doubting your own physical appeal, or questioning your entire self-worth. That is exactly how they maintain emotional power, by constantly keeping you off balance and craving their temporary validation. Their supposed sexual confidence is yet another illusion. Narcissists often present themselves as incredibly seductive, utterly irresistible, or highly experienced lovers. But beneath that flawless image hides deep-seated insecurity. They employ charm, dominance, or elaborate fantasies, not because they are genuinely confident, but because they feel utterly empty inside. They require constant admiration, validation of their desire, and envy from others. They might heavily exaggerate their past experiences or constantly compare themselves to other people just to inflate their fragile ego. And when that constant flow of admiration begins to fade, they frequently search for it elsewhere through affairs, excessive flirting, or intense online attention. It is never about genuine desire. It is purely about feeding their ego with continuous validation. They accumulate attention like trophies to attempt to fill an inner void they absolutely refuse to acknowledge. What they desperately do not want you to realize is that their relentless need for sexual admiration is a clear symptom of profound emotional emptiness. They also use intimacy to confuse your emotions. Narcissists are experts at creating extreme emotional highs and lows. They might entirely ignore you for days, openly insult you, or start completely pointless arguments and then abruptly turn around and initiate passionate, intense intimacy. That is not genuine repair or healing. It is conditioning. It slowly trains your brain to associate pain and chaos with feelings of closeness. They understand that after a conflict, the release of bonding hormones like oxytocin and dopamine during physical intimacy will strongly bond you back to them emotionally. You begin to intensely crave the drama of that emotional roller coaster, wrongly interpreting it as deep love. But it is not love. It is trauma bonding. They know exactly what their actions are doing. They deliberately create the emotional wound, then immediately offer temporary comfort, which makes you dependent on them for relief. It is not closeness. It is control carefully disguised as desire. Another painful truth is that narcissists are genuinely terrified of true intimacy. To them, real vulnerability feels extremely dangerous because it reveals their core insecurities and cracks the perfect facade they present. They can engage in the physical act of intimacy, but they fundamentally struggle with true emotional closeness. After moments of what feels like a deep connection, they may suddenly become cold, distant, or utterly uninterested. You are left deeply confused, wondering if you somehow did something wrong. But in reality, that brief moment of vulnerability made them feel overwhelmingly exposed, so they instantly retreat to regain their control. They use physical closeness to mimic genuine connection, but they cannot sustain emotional openness because it makes them feel small and powerless, which they cannot tolerate. This toxic cycle of manipulation through intimacy leaves devastating emotional scars. You may start severely doubting your attractiveness, your inherent value, or your basic understanding of what love truly is. You might wrongly believe that if you were just a little more exciting, more agreeable, or physically more beautiful, things would somehow improve. But that is precisely what they intend for you to believe. They rely heavily on your self-doubt to keep you hopelessly trapped. The painful truth is that no amount of effort or sacrifice on your part can ever make them capable of genuine connection, because their entire concept of love is deeply rooted in fear and profound insecurity. When you finally see these patterns with absolute clarity, something fundamental shifts inside you. You begin to actively take your power back. You start realizing that their sexual manipulation was never, ever about your worth as a person. It was solely about their own deep dysfunction. You understand that someone who deliberately uses intimacy to dominate and confuse others is utterly incapable of loving honestly. Their every word, action, and touch was about control, not genuine care. And when that absolute truth fully sinks in, the dangerous illusion loses all its power over you. Escaping this type of destructive relationship requires immense time and unwavering awareness. You must relearn what healthy intimacy truly feels like: mutual, safe, and emotionally consistent. You have to actively let go of the false idea that love must inherently include tension, drama, or unpredictability. You must firmly separate who you really are from the person they constantly tried to make you feel like. Healing means remembering that your emotions, your body, and your boundaries belong only to you. It means discovering that true connection feels fundamentally peaceful, not chaotic. You are not broken, you are simply manipulated. The passion you felt was not love. It was control expertly disguised as chemistry. Their deliberate silence was not mystery. It was punishment. Their intermittent attention was not affection. It was strategy. Once you see that clearly, you stop desperately chasing the illusion they meticulously built. You stop wrongly blaming yourself for their own deep emptiness. You start actively rebuilding your self-worth and defining love on your own terms. The biggest fear a narcissist harbors is that you will look behind the carefully constructed act. They rely heavily on your confusion, your intense desire for closeness, and your need for final closure. But when you uncover their sexual secrets, when you finally understand that their entire power structure was built on keeping you completely unaware, you take back everything they attempted to steal: your clarity, your confidence, and your much-needed peace of mind. That is the one thing they never wanted you to figure out, because once you truly see it, you cannot unsee it, and you absolutely cannot be controlled by it any longer. When you recognize precisely how they use intimacy to dominate, manipulate, and trap you, the illusion begins to completely dissolve. You start to separate what falsely felt like love from what was actually calculated exploitation. You stop chasing their fleeting attention. You stop measuring your inherent value through their desire for you. You realize that the intensity you once mistook for chemistry was really just chaos, a psychological trick designed to keep you emotionally addicted. And when you completely stop reacting to their hot and cold behavior, something incredibly powerful happens. They lose control. They sense it immediately that you are no longer drawn in by their surface charm, their seductive energy, or their sudden, intense bursts of affection. That is when they might desperately try to pull you back in with nostalgia. They will remind you of the early days, the passion, the broken promises, the connection that seemed so unique and special. But remember, that initial version of them was never real. It was solely a performance designed to secure your loyalty. Now that you can clearly see through it, they begin to panic because without your emotional and physical response, their illusion completely collapses. They may test you repeatedly, attempting to restart the same destructive cycle: withdrawal, criticism, sudden intense intimacy, then distance. But this time it feels profoundly different to you. You see it clearly for exactly what it is: manipulation, not mystery. You recognize how they deliberately turn affection into a tool for domination, and how they feed off your predictable reactions. They do not crave closeness. They desperately crave control. And once you completely stop providing it, their entire game begins to fall apart. It is crucial to understand that for narcissistic individuals, intimacy is not actually about love or genuine closeness. It is entirely about control and confirmation. Every single time you react to their emotional games, it confirms to them that they still possess power, that they still matter enough to dramatically affect your feelings. That is why truly breaking free from their destructive pattern requires more than just maintaining physical distance. It demands absolute emotional freedom as well. You cannot reason with them, you cannot fix them, and you absolutely cannot love them into becoming a safe partner. What you can do is reclaim your sense of self, your body, your thoughts, and your right to experience intimacy without fear or confusion. Healing from this kind of emotional manipulation requires deep compassion for yourself. You might feel intense shame for how much you endured or embarrassed about how long you remained in the relationship, but please grasp this essential truth: the manipulation was calculated and psychological. Narcissists are masters at expertly reading your emotions, learning what makes you feel wanted, what triggers your deepest insecurities, and then ruthlessly using that knowledge to control you. That does not make you weak. It simply makes you human. You are seeking genuine connection, and they use that sincere longing to maintain control. Seeing that painful truth is not failure, it is profound awareness, and awareness is the undeniable first step toward real, lasting healing. As you embark on your healing journey, you will realize that your body remembers everything it has been through. You may notice that genuine closeness feels complicated, even long after the narcissist is no longer in your life. You might physically pull away from affection or find it intensely difficult to trust someone new. That is completely normal. Your nervous system has been severely taught to associate love with chaos, touch with manipulation, and desire with danger. Healing means slowly retraining your nervous system to fully recognize safety again. It means reclaiming intimacy strictly on your own terms, gently, with complete awareness, and only with people who genuinely see you as a human being, not merely as a trophy or a tool for their validation. One of the most empowering steps you can take is to completely stop explaining or defending your boundaries. Narcissists are highly skilled at twisting boundaries into personal accusations. They will call you distant, selfish, or unloving when you set necessary limits. But boundaries are not punishments, they are essential protection. You are not taking something from them. You are simply taking back what was always rightfully yours: ownership of your body, your choices, and your emotional space. Boundaries teach them that you are no longer available to be controlled, and the moment you say no and truly mean it, you will feel something incredibly powerful: peace. You will also begin to clearly notice how your energy dramatically changes once you step entirely out of their game. The crushing anxiety that used to constantly fuel you begins to fade away. The confusion starts to lift. You stop waking up in dread, wondering which version of them will appear that day. You stop performing. You start breathing deeply. You start feeling your own presence again. And slowly, you realize that the relationship which once completely consumed you is no longer the center of your emotional world. That is when real healing truly begins. Not when they change, but when you stop waiting for them to. As your awareness grows stronger, you will start to recognize these destructive patterns everywhere. You will see how control, power, and manipulation show up not just in intimate relationships, but in friendships, families, and even workplaces. You will start to view charm as something that can effectively hide danger, not as irrefutable proof of safety. You will begin to value consistency over intense drama, calmness over chaos, and steady actions over empty promises. You will become someone who attentively listens to your inner signals instead of constantly silencing them. That is what freedom genuinely feels like. Not emptiness, but absolute peace. Not avoidance, but profound clarity. The narcissist's deepest fear is not that you will intensely hate them, it is that you will simply outgrow them. Because when you do, you stop feeding them the emotional energy they constantly crave. You stop being their mirror. You stop reflecting their false sense of power. You stop giving them the one thing they need most, your undivided attention. And when that finally happens, they are left entirely alone with the immense emptiness they have been successfully hiding from all their life. That is precisely why they never wanted you to learn these devastating truths. Because once you see through the illusion, their entire sense of control completely collapses. Awareness shatters their fantasy of dominance. And once you truly understand that absolute truth, you are no longer the same person who walked into that destructive relationship. You have stepped entirely out of their illusion and firmly back into your own immense strength. You have discovered that real intimacy doesn't drain your spirit. It actively fills it. That real love doesn't require you to shrink yourself down. It actively allows you to grow. And that real connection doesn't confuse you, it brings you profound peace. You begin to understand that you absolutely deserve intimacy that feels safe and completely genuine, the kind that doesn't leave you questioning your inherent worth or perpetually walking on eggshells, the kind that doesn't demand your silence just to keep someone else perpetually comfortable. True connection should never make you afraid of simply being yourself. It should make you feel seen, deeply respected, and completely free. When you heal, you start to move differently through the world. You stop wrongly mistaking intensity for love and chaos for passion. You start seeing how much peace can exist in something stable and kind. You stop desperately chasing external approval and start honoring your own powerful boundaries. You begin to realize that healing isn't about finding someone else to fill your emptiness. It's about remembering that you were never empty to begin with. You simply gave far too much of yourself to someone who fundamentally only knew how to take. But now you are learning to give to yourself. Your time, your care, your protection, your softness. You are learning that your sensitivity is not a fatal weakness. It is your greatest superpower. The very empathy they exploited is what will now actively help you heal. Each time you choose peace over chaos, each time you choose silence over immediate reaction, each time you choose yourself over their drama, you take another significant step away from their control. You are teaching your nervous system that calm is absolutely safe, that stability is far from boring, and that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. In time, you will look back and realize that what once felt like a devastating loss was actually an immense liberation, that walking away didn't fundamentally break you. It actively brought you back to life. Because once you have been utterly drained by a narcissist, real love will feel exactly like breathing fresh, clean air after years spent surviving a dark storm. It will feel steady, warm, and profoundly real. You will no longer crave the painful highs and lows of emotional chaos because you will have discovered something infinitely better, absolute peace within yourself. You will finally understand that love is not supposed to feel like survival. It is supposed to feel like safety. And from that earned safety, your true, authentic self can finally grow without constraint. So, if you are healing right now, know that you are doing something incredibly brave and courageous. You are actively unlearning the painful lessons that manipulation taught you. You are teaching yourself that love can be gentle, that closeness can be calm, that intimacy can be sacred once again. You are not broken. You are actively rebuilding. And this time, you are building from absolute truth, not from dangerous illusion. You are building a life where your heart can finally rest, instead of constantly having to defend itself, where your body feels safe enough to be touched without paralyzing fear, where your mind can finally stop spinning endless stories of what went wrong and confidently start writing powerful new ones about what is truly possible. That is the real ultimate victory. Not revenge, not their eventual apology, not their realization, but your peace, your clarity, your freedom. Because once you fully reclaim your peace, you become completely untouchable in ways they will never be able to understand. You stop living for their momentary approval and start living completely for your own truth. And the moment you choose that truth, everything fundamentally changes. You no longer live in their debilitating shadow. You stop desperately trying to fix someone who was never genuinely willing to grow. You stop needing closure from someone who intentionally built their power on your confusion. And finally, you remember what love is truly supposed to feel like: safe, steady, and kind. You realize that real love doesn't force you to lose yourself. It powerfully brings you home to who you have always been. You are not too much. You are not unworthy. You simply gave your genuine love to someone who didn't know how to truly receive it. But now you do. And that makes all the difference, because the next time love finds you, it won't be about control or manipulative games. It will be entirely about truth, about peace, about freedom. and you will finally see that is the love you always wholeheartedly deserved.